So Oberlin College, very quickly, we are located in Ohio. We are over towards the east coast of the United States. To the west of us, you have Indiana, then you have Illinois, which is where Chicago is. To the east of us, you have Pennsylvania, then you get to New York and New Jersey. So we're about a 1 hour flight from Chicago or Washington, D.C. or New York City. When I have flown to India, I've usually gone to New York and then direct to India. Some people might go India to Boston, Boston to Oberlin to Cleveland's about an hour and a half. But we're in the Midwest, and we have this amazing, amazing history that we love to talk about. The history of America is difficult, I think is the right way to put it. Into the 1960s, this was a very segregated country, and it still is in many respects. But Oberlin has been at the forefront of equality and of diversity in the world of higher education for almost as long as we've been around. We opened in 1833, and you can see that within 4 years, we admitted African American students and we admitted women to study alongside men. We also admitted our first international student around the same time. So we have this long history. The commitment to educating anybody is really important in this country. The picture that you see on the screen here is from the late 1950s, when the United States Supreme Court said that separate academic institutions for whites and non-whites was not legal anymore. Okay, so the picture here is actually the woman in the front is Mary Church Terrell. She was an early graduate of Oberlin College, and our library is now named for her. And so she's here reading this headline about integrated education being something that now has to happen in America. But she'd been a part of that for her life almost, certainly for college. So we care about doing good in the world. We care about doing the right thing. We care about making the world a better place. And I think there's no area that is more obvious than in the area of sustainability, of climate change, of climate justice. Okay? This is a picture of our environmental studies building. This is a completely solar powered building. It is the first building of its kind really on a college campus in the United States. The sort of the pond area in the front that you see there is a wetlands. It's a native wetlands area. This commitment to sustainability is helping us lead to getting to be a carbon neutral campus. We are in the middle of a huge, huge, huge project right now. It's a 5-year project that is costing 140 million US dollars. So that what we're doing is we're converting the entire campus to run off of geothermal energy. So we used to run off of coal. We moved off of that to natural gas. We've moved off of that, or we're moving off of that to run off the Earth's own energy. Okay. What this means is we have to replace all the pipes that are underground across campus. So most of the work we're doing can only happen in the summers because we're ripping up big chunks of campus. We are changing the heating and cooling elements in the residence halls. We can't do that when there are students there. Okay, so we're very active over the summer, digging up the ground, replacing all of the pipes. And then since we're having to cut down a lot of trees to do this, we're replanting trees. But the trees we're planting are ones that are going to be native to this area, to northern Ohio, and they're going to be trees that can last in the different climate, in the climate that exists now, as opposed to the climate that existed 50 years ago. Okay, so yes, we're having to in a sense de-beautify campus, but we're making it better. We're planting more trees to bring the campus to an even better place. So we are an academic institution. What I really wanted to is talk to you about the academic life on campus. I did go to Oberlin myself, so a lot of what I'm going to tell you is based on my personal experiences. Okay, my wife teaches in our Conservatory of Music. I can certainly talk about that as well. But one of the things to know about Oberlin is that we are a small liberal arts college, and what that means is that I think the hallmark of small liberal arts education is a diversity in your education. You don't just focus on one thing. Okay, there are some colleges and universities where you enroll and you only study that one thing that you want to study: computer science, business, history, whatever it is. At Oberlin, you have to diversify what you study. Okay, you have to get breadth to your education. At the same time as you have that breadth, you also will get depth in your academic major. Okay, so you will study one thing in depth or two things if you want to double major, but you must get the breadth. Okay, most small liberal arts colleges are not as big as we are. Okay, so if you add up the numbers at the top there, you get to a little over 3,000 students. We don't actually have that many. We have about 2,900. The reason that there's a difference is because about 200 students are enrolled both in our College of Arts and Sciences and our Conservatory of Music, pursuing a 5-year course of study that will ultimately grant them a Bachelor of Arts degree and a Bachelor of Music performance. So we have about 2,900 students. That's about twice as large as the other small liberal arts colleges in this country. They most have 1,500 to 2,000. But we have students from across the United States. About 10% of our students come from overseas. India is probably the third most, the nation number 3 on our list in terms of the number of students on campus, after China and Vietnam. Okay, we would love for there to be more students from overseas on campus, because your experiences are going to help the students on our campus learn more about what it's like to be a resident of the world. You're going to learn from our students just like they're going to learn from you. Okay. Even though we have more students than most small liberal arts schools, it still feels small. 80% of our classes have fewer than 20 students. I had a class with 2 students, me, one other student, and the professor, and sometimes the professor's newborn son would join us. So sometimes we were in his office, and the baby was in a baby swing. Other times we were outside when the weather's nice and the baby was there sort of rolling around on his back. But we were engaged in our classwork at the same time. It is rare to have a class with more than 70 students in it at Oberlin. Okay. What is it like in the classroom? What we want students to think about is not just what information am I learning. We want students to think about how can I learn? Okay. Because you can learn lots of information from the internet, right? You're wondering how to solve a math problem or what a theorem is, you can look that up. You're wondering how to find compound interest, right? For anybody who's interested in business, there's a formula for that. You can look that up online. You forget who was the king of England at a certain time or who was the king of France at a certain time. You can look that up. The internet can't tell you how to think and how to put all that information together. So I'll give you an example from my very first semester on campus. I majored in history, and I took a class, Introduction to Medieval European History. That was what I started with. And I went to all the classes. I took notes. I did all the reading. I took notes on that. And I participated in lecture or in conversation in the class when it was appropriate. And the midterm exam came, and the professor gave us the exam. And the first question was, thinking about everything we've discussed up to the year 1000, did European society or not? Yes or no, and defend your answer. And I was like, I got no clue. I don't know. I should have just handed my little book back in empty, because I would have probably better. And I did. Okay. There was no reading on did European society progress. There was no time in class where we talked about did society progress. What Professor Smith was saying to us is, you've got to think about the information big picture. You've got to take the information you got, take those names and dates and places that we talked about, but you've got to piece them together. You've got to think about this in a different way than you did in high school. Okay. He helped us do this. He talked about this question on the exam, but that's what you're going to be expected to do in the classroom. You're going to be expected to think differently. You're going to be expected to think across disciplines and across departments and bring in information from one class to another one that you're enrolled in. We actually have a set of classes called Studio OC, Studio Oberlin Collaboration, that forces students to do this, because the students who take these classes, usually they are a small group and they take 2 or 3 classes together. Okay. And they're classes that all focus on one theme, but from different perspectives. So 3 years ago, we had a class here called on the election of 2020 in America. Okay. This was when former President Trump and current President Biden were competing to become the president. Um, we had one class that looked at the election, not just for president, but for the rest of America, for our federal level um, politicians as well as state politicians. Um, one class looked at it from the politics perspective. Another class looked at it from a religious perspective. You know, why in America do certain religious groups tend to vote one way or another? And this may be similar in India. I'm not sure. Why do certain politicians speak in different ways when they speak to different religious groups? That's a different way of looking at the election. A third way was through music and popular culture. That was a class offered by one of our conservatory professors. So we're forcing students to look at one topic from very different perspectives. Okay. There's a lot of resources that you're going to find on campus. There's a lot of support that you're going to get. Okay. You have faculty advisors. The professors in the class serve as academic advisors, and they help you select classes for the next semester. They're there to talk to you about challenges you're facing. They're there to talk about amazing things that have happened for you in the classroom and outside the classroom. They're there to make sure that you are completing all of the basic requirements for graduation, and they're there to make sure you're completing the academic requirements for your area of study. So very quickly, let me just tell you what the general requirements are. So to graduate from Oberlin, you need to complete 32 courses. Students take 4 courses at a time. So each semester, you're enrolled in 4 courses. If you pass all of those and meet a couple other requirements, you'll graduate. It's really fairly simple, to be perfectly honest, okay? You must have an area of study, your academic major. You declare that by the end of your second year. And once you do that, you will have an academic advisor in that department, okay? The general requirements for graduation are you must take at least 2 courses of the 32 courses, 2 courses in each of our 3 big areas: humanities, social sciences, natural science, and math. Okay, so if there's anybody on this Zoom call who does not like math and science, okay, and that was me when I came to Oberlin, that was not what I studied, you still have to do a little bit of math and science, okay? But it does not have to be introduction to neuroscience or calculus. You can pick, you could take a geology class, you could take astronomy, statistics. Okay? There are other things that will fill that math and science requirement. Similarly, if there are some of you who are really gung-ho and you know that you're going to do a STEM field, you still have to do some humanities coursework. Okay, that could be a literature course. It could be a theater course. There are lots of different options. Okay, so you must take 2 courses in each of these 3 areas. Okay, you must take 2 courses that focus heavily on writing, 2 courses that focus on quantitative and formal reasoning, sort of math and logic skills, and 2 courses that are what we call culturally diverse, that focus on things that are not, that don't focus on Western Europe or America. Sorry, let me change it. That don't focus on white men in Western Europe and America. Okay, because in America, that is so much of what the high school education focuses on. Okay, in my 4 years of literature classes in high school, I read 1 book by a non-dead white man. Okay, now it's different in other parts of the world. Things have changed in America. The nice thing is courses will count for lots of things. A course in Russian history will count for a social science course, that's the history. It will count for a writing intensive course. It will count towards a cultural diversity course. So there are lots of ways to do this. Those are the basic requirements. It's really straightforward. What we are essentially forcing you to do is get that breadth to your education. We want to make sure you're studying lots of different things. The reality is when students come to Oberlin, they have lots of different interests. It's not difficult for them to fulfill these requirements, okay? There is a lot of support. Outside of your faculty member, your faculty advisor, you have a full dean of students office that can help students with all sorts of other issues. You have your resident assistant in the residence halls. You also have what's called a PAL. Every first-year student is part of a PAL group. PAL stands for Peer Advising Leader. You're part of this group of students from day one. And it's essentially your friends. Okay. The students all take a first year seminar together if they're taking a first year seminar, which you don't have to do, but most of our students do. This is a group that is led by a PAL. So PAL, that peer advising leader, is also a PAL, a friend. Okay. There are two goals with PAL and the PAL group is to help you get adjusted academically to campus. Okay. You might struggle with some of the writing expectations. Your PAL is there to help you, whether it's in that first year seminar or another class, or by taking you to the writing center. You might be struggling with some of the basic math that is going on. Your PAL can help you get to the peer-to-peer tutoring. You might just be struggling with academic expectations. Your PAL can help you. But your PAL is also there as your first friend. Okay. They're there to help you adjust socially to campus. Okay. And so that's another level of resource. I'm going to skip the research slide. Here's a list of a variety. This is a sampling of the resources that exist on campus. Okay. As a first year student, you're not going to use all of these, but you're going to potentially use a lot of them. So in the left-hand column, the research and the sciences, you've got a bunch of other resources there. OWLs and tutoring. The OWLs are workshop and learning sessions that are peer-to-peer tutoring. You've got other, assistance in here. I'm going to sort of highlight this here. You've got that. There's free tutoring. There's peer advising leaders. You've got all sorts of other offices over in the left-hand column. Okay, religious and spiritual life, equity, diversity, and inclusion office, sustainability. And in the middle, you've got our Center for Engaged Liberal Arts, which is going to launch me into the rest of this time. At Oberlin, we firmly believe that it is not enough for you to just get your education. What we want you to be thinking about is, what do I want to do after college? Your parents will be spending some money for you to come to Oberlin or wherever you enroll. We want them to feel that it's worth it. Okay. And if on graduation, you say to your parents, Mom, Dad, I think I know what I want to go do, and now I'm going to start the process. They're probably not going to be real happy. I have a daughter who's a high school senior right now. And what I hope is that she is thinking about her post-college time as she's taking classes, as she's doing things outside of the classroom. And so what we want students to think about is, how can you take advantage of research opportunities? How can you take advantage of our winter term? And I'll talk about that in a minute. How can you take advantage of internships to help you figure out what you want to do later on in life? Okay, so I'm going to go back a slide. Research, because research is one of the things that our students are very engaged in. At least 2/3 of our students are doing research at any time. It is much more obvious in the sciences. And so in the upper right and the lower left, you see a couple of examples of science research that our students have done recently. Okay, you have a chemistry one there in the upper right. I'm pretty sure it's biology in the bottom left, although the test tubes always throw me when I see that. I'm pretty sure that's a biology one. In the sciences, our faculty are all running active labs. They have written grants to help fund those labs, to help them do the research. Students are actively involved in the labs with them, in the professors' research. It is quite common for our students to give talks at conferences, have papers accepted at a conference, or co-author a paper and have it published in a journal somewhere. Okay, that's what you want, because when that gets onto your resume and you're going out later looking for jobs, you say, look at these experiences I've had. If you look at these other two examples of research on here, in the upper left, the project mentor is in Africana studies. So here was a young woman working on some sort of combination of food issues and Africana studies. Okay, and even gender studies. Okay? In the bottom right, you have something for psychology. So students across the board are doing research here on campus. And if that's something you want to engage in, you absolutely can do that. Okay, we have a set of career communities. Okay, this is a way to get some hands-on experience in a particular field. Okay, because we know that those hands-on experiences are incredibly important. The picture here, the woman on the far right, that's our president, talking with some students about how you can use your classroom experience and these internships to go and do interesting things. You could be a part of one of these career communities and then discover this isn't something I like. And that's just as important as if it reinforces for you that it is something you want to go and do. Okay. Um, Before I get to study away, I want to talk about winter term. I'm pretty sure I don't. Let me look. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do not have a slide for that. I need to get one. Winter term encompasses the month of January. So the month of January, we don't actually have formal classes here. So you've got a break between, let's say, December 20th and February 1st, when the fall semester ends and the spring semester starts. But winter term is an opportunity for you to do one thing, one focused project for an entire month. It could be an internship. It could be a research project. It could be returning home to India and doing something in your school or maybe your elementary school. It's a way for you to say, I want to try something out and focus on just one thing for an entire month. Students like to think that their projects fall into three categories. One is a project just for you. One is something for your community. One is something for your career. Okay. One of my winter terms, I learned how to scuba dive. Okay. That had nothing to do with my major. It has nothing to do with what I do now, but it was a lot of fun. Okay. Other students will use that time to do research in a lab. Other students, I always tell students, if you say at 17, I want to be a doctor, okay, you need to spend a winter term shadowing a doctor, because you might discover at the end of that month that you don't want to be a doctor. You might not have realized what it really meant. And that 1 month focused shadowing is going to tell you what it really is. Okay? So we want our students to use that time to do something that can help guide their path and help say to them, here's what I think I want to do, but let me see if that really is what I'm going to do. You'll have those great experiences. You can add that to a research experience or an internship for your resume for later on. Okay. Studying away, we love Oberlin. We love what our students can do here. There are so many great opportunities. But the reality is sometimes students want to go elsewhere for a semester or for a year to study something that they can't do here on campus. Makes perfect sense. And so a lot of our students will do some sort of academic program overseas. It could be a semester, could be a year. It could be a winter term project or some sort of internship. We have a lot of partnerships, so our students can go on those programs just like it's an Oberlin program. There are some students who find other places that we don't have partnerships with. It's still possible for them to go. Now, as a student who is studying here on a visa, it will be incredibly important. If you want to do some sort of study away program, you're going to have to speak with our international student office to make sure that you're not violating the terms of your visa to be in America to go somewhere else. But it does happen. Many of our international students will study away, will have that experience. Okay. Whoops. So everything I've done so far, it could have almost been any college who was talking to you. I'll be perfectly honest. You know, if you were here for Dickinson or for Wheaton College or for other small liberal arts schools, we're all very similar. You all, small classes, low student to faculty ratio. You can study away. There are lots of extracurricular opportunities. You're going to work with faculty. I think the way we think about a lot of this in making it more intentional with this engaged liberal arts idea is different. But certainly music is one of the things that does distinguish Oberlin in wonderful ways. So we have our conservatory of music for people who want to be a professional musician, but the conservatory is really there for everybody. Over half of the students who enroll in our College of Arts and Sciences did something with music in high school. Right? And those who didn't do something actively with music, playing an instrument in a choir or an orchestra or a band, they enjoy music. And what you're going to find at Oberlin is an incredibly musical atmosphere. We have over 500 musical concerts every year. A lot of our arts and science students will take music lessons through the conservatory. They will take classes in the conservatory. They will audition and perform in different musical ensembles. Okay? So there's a lot of music that you can be a part of if that's something you want to do. If it's not, great. You're likely just going to concerts though, whether it's to support a friend, a classmate, a roommate, or just because the group sounds interesting. Okay. Most of the music you're going to find on campus is classical and jazz, but we have had big name pop musicians like Lizzo and Kendrick Lamar perform at Oberlin. It was before they got really popular. I'm not sure that we could afford them right, these days because it'd be a little bit expensive. Okay. Post Oberlin, I know I'm like, you're thinking in my last year of high school. Why are you talking about what's going to happen 5 years from now? It's important to just know that our students are incredibly successful. So if you are interested in furthering your education in some way, whether it's law school, medical school, business school, graduate programs, you're going to have great support, great background education, and you're going to have those other wonderful experiences that are going to make you stand out. If you are interested in a fellowship in some way, that's a possibility as well. The Truman Scholars are for people who are interested in public policy and maybe law. A lot, we do very well with students applying for those fellowships. Fulbright Scholars are people who go to teach English overseas. Goldwater Scholars are people who are doing science research. So, we're not just doing well in terms of fellowships in one area, it's across the board. If you're interested in a job, here's some examples of places. First destinations for our students. Okay. So lots of great opportunities. Hopefully, you are not in a position to say, it's graduation day. What am I going to do next? Maybe I'll start looking for a job. Again, we want you to be thinking about that earlier, through your academics, through talks with your advisor, and through some of the other things you're doing. Lastly, we have financial aid and admissions. So this is the general financial aid information, but I'm going to also make this specific for the Next Genius program. So Oberlin meets 100% of your family's demonstrated need. Okay. As an international student, we ask that you fill out the CSS profile. Okay. Don't worry about the FAFSA. You can't do that. You're not US citizens. So ignore that. The CSS profile is the first thing. Once you submit your application, in your applicant portal, you will see there are a couple of financial aid documents you have to fulfill. One is called the Declaration of Finances form. This is a very simple form. It will take you 30 seconds to fill out. What you basically say is, here's how much we can afford each year. Okay? You fill that amount in for the first year, and it auto-populates for the other years. It's very simple. Okay? Then we ask you to submit documentation to support your family's ability to pay. Okay. It could be a wage earning statement. It could be tax documentation, bank statements, whatever it is that's going to help us understand that this is how much we can afford. Okay. We will then work with everything you've submitted and we will meet your need 100%. So if you say we can afford 20,000 US dollars and we admit you, that's what you will pay each year. And the rest of the cost of attendance will be covered by our financial aid, a combination of loans, minimal loans, a small work study, and then grants and scholarships cover the rest of it. The grants and scholarships never get paid back, ever. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. You are automatically renewed. You are automatically considered for merit scholarships. Okay. Academic merit scholarships. And then if your family still has financial need, there is needs financial aid. Okay. Now, by being a Next Genius partner, we are guaranteeing that at least one of you, maybe more, but at least one of you will receive a 75% tuition scholarship. Okay. Right now, tuition is about 62,000 US dollars. Okay. So, we are hopeful that we are going to love all of your applications and that we're going to be able to admit all of you. I don't know if that's possible. We're going to admit as many of you as we possibly can. And then you're going to get to choose. Am I interested in Oberlin enough that I want to go to Ohio? Or do I want to stay closer to home? Whatever it is, you're going to have the choices to make. Okay. I know that the financial aid can be confusing. It can be a little bit daunting, but just fill out the CSS profile, fill out the other things in your applicant portal after your application has been submitted, and then we will work with all of that. If you have questions, please, 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 please reach out to me. Okay. And I'll give you my email address later, or you can use the WhatsApp chat. You can always get in touch with me that way. Okay. The last thing then is, what are we looking at in an application? So the application deadlines don't really apply to you all as much. Your application deadline is January 1st. Really, I think this year it's January 2nd. We're not open January 1st. Okay. So what we ask is get your application turned in. Next Genius wants you to have everything turned in by that point. We understand if you get all of your documents turned in, but a teacher hasn't gotten a letter of recommendation in. Okay. We understand that. That is out of your control. Okay. What I would ask is make sure to ask your teachers early so that they can get the things turned in, so they can get their letters turned in to us. Okay. If we get information January 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, that's fine. Okay. I know Next Genius maybe doesn't want me to say that as much, but it happens because there are things out of your control. You get turned in what you can get turned in, and we will then work on the rest with you. Okay. We will review all of your applications in the couple of weeks after that. And then on January 20th, we will see then. We're going to do, we're going to do a session for your parents. We're going to do meet and greet. We're going to get to know you a bit. We're going to do some workshops. 4 of my colleagues will be on the call, including our Dean of Admissions. But we're going to just get to know each other even more. We're going to see how you interact, what you have to say, things like that. And then we're going to make decisions. Okay. What are we looking for? We're looking great and foremost. We want to see that you've done well in high school, in your core. We want to see that you're doing things outside of the classroom. Okay. There are many great students in this country and around the world who just don't do anything out of school. That's not what we're looking for. We would really like to see that you're doing something. But to us, it doesn't matter what you do. We just want to see that you're doing something. If you are responsible for getting evening, your parents are working, great. Tell us that you are involved in home responsibilities. Okay? If you're involved with different organizations in your high school, tell us. If you do a lot of community service, tell us. If you're an athlete in some way, tell us. That's all that we want to see, is that you're doing something, because we know that you're then going to be busy and active on our campus community.